Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Scottish Volleyball Live. I'm delighted to be online tonight with a Scottish volleyball legend, and that's not my co-host, although he's the national team men's manager, Ali Jack. I'll just invite him on. Ali, on you come.
Hey, everybody.
Ali, welcome. Thanks for co-hosting tonight. I know that the usual hosts of Andy and Martin have disappeared on us, so we've been thrown in, but I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for joining us. And we've got a fantastic guest as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously one of Scotland's longest serving professionals ever, so hopefully get a good chat with Mark.
Yep, and Mark's backstage just ready to go, so if you can give us a wee like or a comment to let us know that you're here and ready to get Mark on. I just want to very, very quickly touch upon the update from the Scottish Government today. The position with the SVA Play It Safe still remains the same. It's great to see that we have a date in September with regards to hopefully returning to our leisure centres. So hopefully our clubs out there and club administrators and coaches can start making some plans for outdoor activity and then ready for that kind of indoor activity towards the end of September. But we'll communicate everything that we can with you as soon as we have clarification from other partners like Sports Scotland. But without further ado, as I say, Mark McGivern's backstage. I'm delighted to have him, so if we can invite him on the stage.
Hello.
Good evening, Mark. By the power of TV, that was magnificent. Yeah. Great timing. Mark, first of all, a massive welcome on behalf of everybody at Scottish Volleyball. Thanks for taking your time out to share some of your journey with us. I'm going to have the fun bit. I just want to talk a little bit about your kind of journey and getting here. Ali's going to back me up and work on some more technical side of things once that's out the road. So I think, as Ali said, one of the longest running professional careers we've ever had. So I probably want to take it all the way back to just when you started playing volleyball. What kind of introduced you to the sport?
Well, we're going back, I don't know, 20 years now. A long time. Basically started in school. I was fortunate enough that the PE teachers were interested in volleyball, and they had a lunchtime club. And basically, I was always played football from primary school up into right into secondary school. And then as I got older, I was just, you know what it's like in Scotland, it rains a lot. So avoiding the rain, I decided to go inside at lunchtime and just try and stay dry, basically. And then from there, played some recreational stuff, like I said, at lunchtime. And then with the school, they decided to start a team, and I think we played once a month at the Fife Institute back in Glenorthis. I'm familiar with this place.
Yep.
And then from there was introduced to Colin McGinley, and he ran Team Fife, and he was interested to get me and a couple of the guys along to really just to start and to progress. And that was, can't even remember when it was, maybe 2000, I think. So yeah, 20 years ago.
And at that point, did you, if somebody said fast forward 20 years, you'd be sitting talking about a professional career that had been to the Olympics, would you laughed at them? Was this always the vision for you?
Sure, for sure. Nah, it was never anything more than just being with your mates and, like I said, staying dry at lunchtime, you know. And then really Colin McGinley was the person that really got me involved and really got me excited for the sport. His enthusiasm for the game really just grabbed me, and from then I just couldn't get enough of it. Right from the start, really.
And it's great to hear that, you know, the important part that school PE and also the important part that a coach has played in such a successful career. And that's probably aspects I want to touch upon, certainly the coaching point as we move on. But you, I'm going to say you went to Aberdeen Uni, is that right? So
yeah.
Did you play through uni? Were you still playing?
I didn't play for the university. I continued to play for Team Fife at the time. Actually, after I finished high school, I went to college first because I really didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I've never been someone for setting goals, or, you know, like I never had a 5-year plan. I never had anything. So from high school, I said, okay, I'll go to college here in Glenrothes, and I did a NC in sports coaching and development. And from there, I went to HNC and HND. Then decided, okay, enjoying coaching. I'm going to progress it further. And then I did two more years at University in Aberdeen, whilst still in Team 5 at the time. That was maybe 5 years altogether.
And do you think that, going through that kind of educational side of things, with your college and then your uni, right, and sports coaching, sports development, it gave you a bit of an insight or changed your mentality towards your own performance? Because in some of the research, I've spoke to a few people who said you were an absolute dream. You were really, really coachable. You were told one thing, you would take it on, and that would be it, you would go with it. Do you think that's an ethos that was developed in you, having a bit of an understanding behind the coaching?
That's a good question. I don't know. I loved volleyball right from the start, and so from there it was really just give me as much as you can, and I'll try my best at providing what you wanted me to do.
Yeah.
I think from coaching youngsters, going through university wasn't volleyball specific. It was placements. It was mostly football, actually. Even still, when I was at university, so it was football coaching in secondary schools and primary schools, and also, I'm going back now, was short tennis and things like this. I don't know. Basically, is what I'm saying. Yeah, I just love volleyball, and I just wanted to be the best as what the coaches want me to do.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously shown that you've got that good ethos of learning around you, that you've had that longevity. I think probably just after you finished Aberdeen 2005, they announced that London's hosting the Olympics. Now, at that point, I don't know, I certainly can't remember what I was doing when I heard about what we're hosting the Olympics, but I was nowhere near thinking that I might be performing at elite level. Did it start at that point for you to think, wait a second, I could be involved in that? Or was it a conversation somebody had with you? Or?
No. From then was, because I'd left Team 5 maybe around that time, maybe 2004, 2005, because I wanted to practice more. At this time, we were only practicing once per week, and I moved to Edinburgh. I still stayed in Glenrothes, but I moved clubs to Edinburgh, where they practiced 3 times a week, and also travelled through to Glasgow once a week to practice with Thomas Downs and a lot of the national team guys that were invited to the Thursday session. So where was it? I remember exactly where I was when I was told that I was going to be on the British squad, and I was working in North Lanarkshire at the time in a primary school. I received an email because Thomas Downs was the interim coach for the British team, and he'd said that he wanted to be in squad. And so I remember exactly then was the moment when I thought, okay, this is serious now.
And do you think that the ability to go and compete at the Olympics really notched your game up? Is that when it really kicked in that there's a career in this for me, and it became almost a full-time job at that point, even because you knew you had that on the horizon? Is it something that's helped you as a positive legacy?
Yeah, a driving force at the time, and it really pushed things forward. It accelerated everything, because from then the announcement was that there was going to be a professional coach for the national team, and then soon after that they announced that we would all travel to Holland to be part of Martinez, all the British guys. But in terms of looking at it as a career, the year that I played in Glasgow, I had an opportunity to go to Estonia and to play professional. And at the time, I just met my now wife, and she kind of said, "Listen, it's a new relationship. I'm not going to travel to Estonia. Make the choice." And so I chose her and stayed in Glasgow and played a year there. And yeah, after Glasgow was then straight into Holland, and then that's when it became the career from then.
Yeah.
I'll maybe jump in with a question. Obviously, up until your uni days, or until you started playing professionally with the GB squad and whatever else, you talked about university, club. You were staying at home at the time, but travelling up to Aberdeen, I think.
Yep.
And I believe you were also working on top of that, but you still managed to fit everything in that you were asked to do. You know, you sort of said that you didn't have any major desire to do anything, but you obviously had some pretty good time management skills to get yourself through that phase in your life.
Yeah, it just all fit together. I mean, the everything kind of fit around volleyball for me at this time. It was tough, but yeah, we just made it work. I mean, I was working in a supermarket, and so I managed to schedule shifts around. It was mostly weekends. And in fact, now that you're saying that, I remember one time we played a game for Team Fife, and it was against Kilmarnock, and we were winning. And after the second set, I left to go and work in the supermarket, and we lost. I lived that one down for a while. But especially when I went to the national team, and the Glasgow guys they weren't happy. Yeah, it wasn't easy, but like I say, the desire was always there to play volleyball, and not knowing what was in the future, just the love of it was just really enough for me to schedule things around it and take care of my time pretty well.
But you really did do everything that certainly I remember seeing that you were ever asked. And you probably knew this one was coming, but what about the custard? Because I think it's a memory of a few people of you in your younger days. You were obviously a lot skinnier in those days. I don't know if there was something behind it in terms of nutrition, but everywhere you went, you had custard and rice to keep that energy going. I think it was a few people's memories of you drinking custard directly after training or matches.
Oh, I can't remember doing that, but
it's obviously worked. It must have worked.
There's some science behind it. If you go back a couple of these episodes, you'll see the nutritionist from Australia.
Yeah,
she was
New South Wales.
After practice now. But I remember living on nutrition bars, Nutrigrains and this kind of thing. It was yeah. You get them 10% discount when you work in the supermarket.
And looking back on those younger years, Mark, is there any advice you would have given to your younger self, or potentially somebody that's in that same position as you, that's maybe, you know, not 100% sure what they want to do with a career, but love volleyball, their whole life's around volleyball, and that they're maybe ready to go to college? How is it that you've managed to get that jump to a professional career when, you know, there's not many people have done that and lasted the time that you have? Is there something, one bit of nugget advice, or even a little bit of advice around what they could do?
I mean, there's a saying, I don't know where it originally came from, but it says if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So, I mean, if you really are passionate about volleyball, then I mean, go for it. Like, there's nothing stop. I mean, it's tough. I understand. I mean, in the beginning, it was really difficult. It was hard. The money wasn't good, and obviously starting after I'd already been working. I was working for a year and a half or 2 years coaching in North Lanarkshire, where the money was better than what I was receiving for the first couple of years as a professional. So I can understand the dilemma with people now who are obviously coming from the UK, where there's not a professional league there, where you can kind of manage working or taking a little bit extra money somewhere else. So, I mean, advice would be, yeah, go for it. Go with your gut. Like, if you really are passionate about it, if you do want more of it, because I know in the UK there's kind of a cap on how much you can train and how much you can fit in, because there's no money there to be made as a living. So just go for it, basically.
Yeah, and that kind of echoes what Melissa said on Tuesday night. I don't know if you had a chance to catch that. She talked about that leap of faith. Just if you want it, go and give it a bash and see where it goes. So it's interesting to hear that. Exactly. You've played in a lot of different countries. You've played for different teams and different groups. What does coaching styles vary between different countries? Do all of your coaches have different strengths and weaknesses? Is it something that have had a big impact on you? Or is there a particular coach or coaching style that you've thought, wow, that's really had a positive impact on the way that I've played or how I've seen the game?
I mean, there's a lot of questions in that one question. In terms of coaching style, yeah, there's not necessarily from country to country, but from coach to coach. I played my first years in France, played for a coach. South of France, very kind of laid back and wasn't really pushing so hard. Then went after the south of France, we moved up to Lyon, played for a French coach there, and he was a bit more strict and a bit more controlled of the schedule and things like that. And then my second year there was an Italian coach came in, Silvano Prandi, and he's been involved in top level volleyball for longer than I've been alive. You know, he's been coaching in Italy and in France for 40 years now. So from different coaches, I mean, also coaches they have different levels of development as well. So it's interesting. You take bits from everybody, and you just add them to your game, and you kind of pick the bits that you feel comfortable with, and yeah, you just develop along with their development, I guess, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, definitely. And do you feel now, as a more kind of seasoned pro, when you've got some of the younger guys around you in the squad, that you're almost taking a little bit of that mentor and a bit of that coaching role to help develop them, or be that buffer between the coach and the players? Definitely.
There's always older guys in the team, and luckily here the guys that are playing with the younger guys, they take things on board that the older guys say. They've got a lot of respect for the older players, and they do listen. I can also remember when I was younger, I would try and take bits from what guys were saying. But a lot of times you go places and they'll just nod their head and agree with you, and you know, not really take it in. But yeah, no, it's good here. You can kind of, because if younger players don't feel comfortable going to the coach and asking them, you can always kind of step in. It's also good for the coach as well to have older guys that can give information as well from the floor rather than from the court side.
Yeah. And I mean, from a point of view, you're right saying you've got two young kids. You've talked there about moving around a lot. You said your first move was put on hold slightly because you were early on in your relationship. But yeah, have your family moved with you the whole time? Has that been a difficult task?
The whole time? No. Honestly, it's one of the best things about being a professional volleyball player is the amount of time that you get to spend with your family. And it's not easy if you're moving to countries, if you're moving to Russia, if you're going to Siberia, you know, it's not the easiest place for your family to travel. But I mean, we travelled straight away with Holland. Everybody speaks English. Weather's much like in the UK. Then from Holland, we went to France. Again, it's not really a big change for families. And then coming here to Bulgaria was probably one of the biggest, should be, because obviously the language is completely different from in Europe. So it's been great having the family come around really from the very start. When I was lucky that Louise, my wife, travelled with me straight away to the Martinez days in Holland. Luckily, our coach, who was Dutch, was from the same area as where the club was, and he'd organised for Louise to get a job in the International School of Amsterdam. So straight away, work experience abroad. So it was easy. It was easy for me, but I'm not sure for her.
And if I can jump back a little bit, because I feel as if I kind of skirted around about it, but Olympics, home Olympics, being an Olympian, playing in front of all those people, you know, wandering about Olympic Village. Yeah. What was it like?
Amazing. At the time, you kind of had to pinch yourself to say, like, really, all these really top level athletes who are really going for gold medals, you know, and we're kind of walking around there 4 years together, you know, like expecting to try and do some kind of miracle to win something at the Olympics. I mean, was really incredible. But I remember from really early on in the British programme, we had a mentor. He was a French national team coach at the time. His name was Philippe Blaine, and he came to us one training session, and he spoke to us after, and he gave us lots of good advice. And he said, "Listen, guys, like you need to understand how lucky you are to have this opportunity, because there's volleyball players in the world who are 10 times better than you and will never ever go to an Olympic Games." And that really hit us then, and it was like, right, okay, you need to kind of work hard here and take as much in as you can to try and perform at the best that we could, because there is people out there who are genuinely 10, 20 times better than we were and will never have the chance to go to Olympic Games. So I was really lucky, but the experience was great.
And any funny stories did you bump into the M day? Usain Bolt at McDonald's having some chicken nuggets or anything like that? No, was there?
Not really, actually. I remember we were all sitting around in the cafeteria, and there's loads of noise, as you can imagine, because it's a huge place and there's lots of different cuisines. And all of a sudden it went quiet, and I had my back to the door, and I really like a deadly silence, and turned round, and there is Usain Bolt walking down with his entourage, and everybody's just staring at this legend, all these gold medals around his neck. You know, it's just
amazing.
There was a funny story. The last night after the closing ceremony, we went back to the village and had a bit of a party. All the British, they'd kind of closed off one section for the British people. Anyway, that had finished. The alcohol had dried up, and we said, okay, let's go and get some food. So we did go. We went to the McDonald's, and at the McDonald's there was one guy acting the tough guy, you know, and one of the guys said to him, like, listen, calm yourself down. Because he was kind of mocking one girl that was there. And one of the other guys, Chris Lamont, said, that's the heavyweight gold medalist for boxing. So I had to kind of take a step back from it.
Yeah, good memories, I'd imagine. So probably before I pass on to Ali to ask him more stuff here, what's your schedule like just now? What's your kind of gym to training time regime like over there? Are you 7 days a week? Yeah, well, normally out with this crazy world of COVID, what would you expect your training regime to be like?
When we're back training, it's 2 sessions a day. So it'll be 2 fitness in the morning. The other mornings are usually reserved for kind of service reception practice, and then in the afternoon is more technical and 6 against 6. So generally Monday through Friday is 2 a days. Luckily for me, now that I'm old, they kind of look after me, so it's only 2 fitnesses in the morning for me, and then service reception, it's long lies and recovery, and then games on the weekends. So you have a morning practice and then the evening game.
And have you seen the preparation for games, or even the preparation for the athletes, the players, change or develop over your time there? Is there more emphasis on data? Is there more emphasis on analysis of opponents? How they change or how they train in the gym? Is it more science led, if you like?
We're given specific programs for fitness, so although we don't see the science behind it, there is something there that the coaches go by to say for progression and sports specific or volleyball specific exercises. Early days there was not so much emphasis on data from regarding other teams. As I was in France for a few years, and like I said, when we had the Italian coach come in, then things kind of ramped up a little bit, and there was a stat guy. He was there every day at practice, actually scouting practices. And then the day before the game, you'd be given your pack of information from the opposing team, rotation by rotation, attacking directions, serving, how they serve, and things like that. And here is the same. Here is kind of really the president here, who's I also played with in France. He has really put a professional program in place here to develop the young guys and to show them what it's like abroad. And really, they've got a good system in place here. There's a physiotherapist, there's a scout guy every day, and data on the other team is pretty big now, and it helps a lot.
Yeah, I was going to follow back up with that. Is it something you find adds value to your preparation going into the game?
100%, because at money time, setters and teams 9 times out of 10 do what's on the paper. They revert to what they do best, what works for them. And so at money time, when things are important and games on the line, you kind of revert back to the original game plan and execute what you can.
So, Mark, on that increase in the level of information that you've been asked to compute over the years, it sounds like at one stage there was a bit of a jump in that level of data. How did you manage to get your head around that initially?
I mean, the jump, it wasn't a huge jump, and the coaches do keep things pretty specific. They'll give you like the setup distribution and some key points from the game. Like it's not pages and pages of data. It's really broken down simple, rotation by rotation. This is what's going to happen, or this is what the setup does, and they'll give you percentages of what they kind of do. So in the beginning, it did take a little while to get your head around it, but I mean, you have to think that the stat guy has spent a lot of time going over games, analysing games, and giving you this information. So then you do have to kind of take it on yourself to read it and to memorise it, because it's this guy's job to give you this information. If you just kind of disregard it, then I mean it's disrespectful for him, but then it's also detrimental to your performance in the game, because like I said, 9 times out of 10 money time they're going to do what is on the paper.
Brilliant, thanks, Mark. I've just got a couple of questions here that I'm going to go through before I pass over to Ali, if that's okay. The first one I've seen there is from Andy Fleming. He's shoved up, how much did Jeff Marshall influence you?
Probably more than he knows. Probably more than what I'd like to admit to. I remember when I first started in Team 5, there was actually quite a few juniors. There was quite a few of us who, and they split the, at the time was the Fife Institute, they split it into two courts. And I remember that I was tall enough to look over the solid part of the net, and I could see the older guys training. And I remember thinking, right, that's where I want to be. That's the court that I want to be on, and obviously Jeff Marshall playing in my position was someone that I looked up to and wanted to play like, really.
Is it true there's a certain Ali Jack that was a setter when you were playing, when you were breaking in? Is that true?
I mean, Ali Jack was there. Setter, I'm not so sure. You can maybe call him a ball. I was there as well. I was there. Yeah, it was good times.
Yeah.
I've got another question here from Peter Campbell. It's an interesting one. He's asking who your toughest opponent was when you were playing in Scotland.
Jeff in training. Like an individual or a team?
I suppose you could take it either way.
Well, it's hard to pick an individual. I always remember there was a player that played for Kilmarnock, who'd played professional before. I forget his name now. Maguire, I think. He was an outside hitter. Man, this guy had the best roll shot that I'd ever seen. Was unstoppable. And of course that team Kilmarnock was pretty dominant those times, or when I was playing. So yeah, I guess Gary Maguire and Kilmarnock.
Brilliant.
There was also my age as well, actually, who were already years ahead of me. Stuart McGrenery, Chris Lamont, Johnny Hurley, Ali Galloway, all these guys were already good athletes. Yeah. No, Surrogatsi were good as well then.
Oh yeah.
So,
We've talked a lot about coaching, Mark. You've obviously been through your college and your uni, and you've done a little bit of coaching before you started playing. I've asked you about different coaches. You know what the next question is going to be. You know, when you do get to the stage of the future planning, is coaching something you would consider or think about?
it's definitely crossed my mind a few times. Yeah, I would like to do it. I would like to coach. The easier option would be to go for a junior team and then help assist a more senior team for a length of time to really kind of understand it. Because as long as you've been in the game, I don't think there's anything like coaching. You know, like you can understand the game, but then to have other players do what you want to do, I don't think it would be easy. It's not an easy task. And I know a lot of players do move into coaching and are successful, but I'm sure there's a lot that do it and are unsuccessful. So yeah, I'd like to get into coaching.
Brilliant. Well, that's my link into our men's national team head coach. So I know he's got a few questions that have been teed up beforehand, and I'll pass over. I'll keep an eye on the questions and see if any more come in. But Mark, from that point of view, thanks very much for your time.
No, thanks very much.
So, you were talking obviously at the start of the GB programme, Mark, and a lot of the national team players I've heard from Ali Galloway in particular about the jump and the transition from what was happening in Britain to when you went to Holland, essentially trying to squeeze in quite a few years training into one season. Obviously, that shake of the head maybe brings back memories. How did you manage to cope with that essentially, and was that replicated with the clubs that you went to after the GB programme?
How did we? I mean, you just had to cope. It was tough. I mean, we kind of had experiences of longer trainings before. I remember going on camps to where was it now? Upper Hayford, and I remember doing 3 sessions a day, which was just. The thought of doing that now, my knees are screaming right now at me, actually, just even thinking back to practicing 3 times a day. But, I mean, at the time, Harry Brocken, when he was the head coach, when he came in, he said, listen, guys, you're years and years and years behind everybody else, and you're going to have to put in the work. If you don't want to, see you later. If you're ready to come aboard, let's go. And so... Really, I mean, in the summers, because we had this summer leading up to that, what was based in Sheffield, so we'd already had 2 a days. We were already practicing a lot in the weight room and then on the court. But going to Martinez and practicing the amount that we practiced, and then getting beat on the weekend was it was tough. And then the second part of the question was and it wasn't replicated anywhere else after this. I remember leaving from Holland and going to France and actually asking the coach for more practice, because obviously I had the goal now of going to the Olympic Games and being part of this team, and saying we've got 3 mornings off a week, can we at least do something? And his philosophy was, he's a guy from the south of France. No, I'd rather that we practice once a day and you give 100% in the afternoon, rather than coming in the morning, giving 50% and then coming in the afternoon and not giving 100% because you're tired from the morning, or, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I understood it, but at this time I was early 20s and I had the energy that I wanted to do it, but that was his way of working, so I understood it.
And during that time, obviously, we've got questions coming in there as well, and one of the questions from your GB colleague Chris Lamont refers to your funky serve, as he's calling it. When you started, and as far as my memory goes back, you didn't really have that type of serve, certainly early on in your career. Was that something that you set as a target to improve, to get yourself on the court with the GB team, or did it just come about naturally?
I can't remember exactly when I started it, because I remember trying jump serve and smash serve, spin serve, whatever you want to call it. Just wasn't strong enough. had a fast shoulder. I don't have a heavy one. You know, it wasn't really. So you know what it's like to receive a top spin ball. It's easy, so it's almost a waste of time doing it. So I remember in Holland was standing float serve. Then I think just one day I just tried it and just kind of stuck from there. I wish I had some kind of scientific explanation to say this is why I did it, but it was kind of cool. Made me stand out. Coaches have came up to me and commented saying, "Oh, I remember you. You're that guy with that serve." But other than that, there's nothing else other than I tried it and I liked it and was effective.
I think I'm not sure if that coincided with the change in rules from the service box getting expanded across the baseline, because obviously your serve developed a wee bit of lateral movement there as well.
I think back way beyond when I started. This must have been olden days volleyball.
Which I remember well.
White volleyballs and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tachicaras. So moving on a wee bit to blocking, there's obviously that's on the agenda for tonight. I've asked you questions about your blocking technique before, to which you responded, ask somebody that knows about blocking. So hopefully we'll get more information from you tonight.
Maybe we can get Chris Lamont on the video call as well. He'll be able to tell you.
Sounds good. We've obviously talked about the information that you're getting from coaches, and it's been mentioned obviously in the title of tonight that relating to the cues that you're responding to. So can you give us a wee bit of information as to how you weight your decision making between the information that you're given pre-point or pre-match or against what you're actually seeing in front of you?
I mean, I think you've kind of not answered it, but you've said wait. You have to wait. I mean, you can't go before the ball's been released, because now setters, they see where you are, they see where you're standing, and they'll just give it the opposite way. So it really is. I mean, now is read blocking. Just you obviously have to take into consideration the opponent, who's attacking, who their strongest attacker is the setter front court or back court. So it makes a difference for the speed of the set. If he's going behind, if he's going to zone 2, if he's going to zone 1, you know, you've got a little bit more time if he's setting backcourt. Mm-hmm. So really, there's a whole lot of things that are involved. I mean, obviously the preparation that you do in practice before the games is kind of, because everything's from week to week is really lined up for the game of the weekend, and so you already kind of know the tendencies of the setter. Like I said before, from P1 through to P6, you have an understanding of where he's going to go. So you've already taken out 1 or 2 options for you. So you already kind of know if he's going left or right, if he sets middle a lot, if he's got pipe. So that everything's kind of, you're almost pre-programmed to know where he's going to go. Obviously, you get to a certain level, and the setters don't do everything that's on the paper. So then it comes down to reading. If you jump with the first tempo, it's almost not pointless now, but there's not a lot of guys that will just jump first tempo unless they know that in this rotation he does set a lot of middle. So again, you just read, see where the ball's coming from, who the strongest attacker is, and then where the setter takes the ball. So if he's taking it far in front of him, it's more difficult to go behind his head. So you kind of know middle, front, or if he's taking it higher above his head, you know, there's a high possibility that it's going to go behind. So there's lots of different pieces of information, and then practice on top of that. Practice. It's drilled into you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously experience impacts decision making quite a lot. But do you feel that there's anything in particular that's given you a wee bit of an advantage as you've gone through your career gaining that experience? Any golden nuggets in there?
Not really, to be honest. It's just practice. And like I said, the week leading up to the game, you do work specifically for the tendencies of the other setter. So drills 6-on-6 will be kind of guided around what the other team does. So like I said, you're already kind of pre-programmed that if the reception is on the 3 meters, you know that he's going to go zone 4 or opposite or whatever. But you kind of already have that inside you. Of course, you have to be able to adapt and change because they're smart players as well. They're not going to do exactly the same thing every time. So, yeah.
And when you were obviously in Scotland and at the start of your career, you were younger, you were a wee bit quieter, but as your career's gone on, you've certainly turned right into someone who's very much a team player on the court. And how did that transformation happen?
I don't know, to be honest. I think, like, just for the love of the game, just, it sounds really cliche, but I don't know. It's something that I just like to do. I like to be energetic. And I think the more tired I was, the louder I was speaking. Just to disguise how tired. I mean, because honestly, I remember in the early days just being tired because you're practicing all this, and really the body wasn't ready for it because it was such a jump in the early days. So I know I just enjoy the feeling of my energy bringing up someone else, and it's become second nature doing practice, and it's not something I've learned. It's just something I've been able to speak to people in a way that doesn't offend them, if that makes sense. You know, it's like whereas if someone else said the same thing that I've just said to this person, they maybe get a smack in the head. You know, it's something that, I don't know, it's just kind of came. I can read people quite well, so I know if someone doesn't want to be spoken to, I know not to speak to them. And someone that needs a kick up the backside, I know when. You know, it's just, I guess, just experience.
Yeah, great answer, to be fair. The Blair, I'm maybe cutting you off here, but Darren Martin's popped up with a question here, one of the national team middle blockers, and he's asking if you have any specific footwork to get you to the outside, or is it more a case of just get there as fast as you can?
It's a bit of both, to be honest. It's a good question. We're kind of taught. It's kind of hard to show you. And actually, when you asked me to do some stuff with you before, I made a couple of videos from in the gym just to show you footwork, actually, specifically.
You never sent me them, though.
No, because I was going to do them live with the guys.
All right, sorry.
Basically, when you're in your position ready for block, especially if it's like a perfect reception, you have to be in this kind of athletic position with your knees already bent. And basically, it's a some people describe it as a step and then a cross step to the outside, to whichever side. So if they're going to the opposite, so you're going to your left side, it's kind of a step and then a cross step. But what we've been kind of taught in the last few years, anyway, is instead of making that first initial step, it's more you're opening your foot. So my left foot is open. So I don't know if you can. My left foot is opening, and then you make this cross step, you know. So, and then you obviously go as fast as you can. So the footwork for me is to open up the foot with my knees already bent, and then go as quickly as possible to the side that the ball's been set to.
I think one of the things that middle blockers find toughest, Mark, is probably what happens when they're not getting there on time, which obviously as you go up higher up a level is a higher chance that happens. So how do you manage to make up for it when you know that you're not quite going to get there on time?
I mean, we're taught to, no matter where you are in relation to the outside blocker, it's just to put your hands straight over the net. Where you are, it doesn't matter if there's a hole, a ball-sized hole or a metre hole, you're taught to go straight over the net. And it's something that is next to impossible for me to do. And I've always put my hands to the side that I want to try and close the hole in the block, and it's a nightmare for defenders. And every coach will tell you, just go straight over the net. Yeah, okay, I'll go straight over the net. And then you try and close it again and you go. And it's something, like we said before, I mean, I wasn't joking when I said to you, you should probably ask someone who knows how to block, because blocking for me was something that I really had to practice a lot, because guys have this feeling for blocking that's just like, we have a guy on our junior team, he's 16 or 17 years old, he's amazing at blocking. He's 16. So, and for me, it was something that really, I don't know if that's because I started so late, or I don't know. I just never had that feeling for being aggressive on the block. Obviously, as the years have went on, it's gotten better, and I've been more effective, certainly more efficient. So I'm not making mistakes on block. I definitely don't touch the net. But the touches that I do touch the ball is a positive touch. But like I said, when you're not there, the most important thing is just to put your hands straight over the net, because for the defense behind you, it's so important that they can see the spiker as well.
There's another question popped up there as well on the same note from Phil Freer, who was on a national team staff in the Faroes there. So Phil is asking, when the ball is wide, would you reach towards the ball to create a better angle for a positive block, or reach back in court to take the sharp angle out of play?
This is another good question. You see guys going straight over the net when the ball is wide and the ball comes off. Basically, you don't want to reach as far over the net as you would on a normal set. If the ball's wide, you kind of want to have the antenna. I don't know how to do this in the video actually. You don't really want to be like you would on a normal block, but you maybe have your hands more like this and allow this angle, because the angles are so sharp the wider the ball goes, as you know. So it's easier for the defense to kind of be in position rather than you then allowing your hands to be used to block out. Because I mean, if the ball's wide, you're not going to try and block like this, if you know what I mean. Otherwise, the ball touching goes out. So you don't want to reach as far over. You want to kind of keep your hands more with the antenna.
So in terms of managing to maintain that blocking shape that you've been describing, that's obviously quite difficult for a lot of middle blockers. Is there anything from your strength and conditioning that you've seen has helped you develop that skill as you've gone through your career?
In terms of strength and conditioning?
Anything in particular?
In terms of what? What do you mean for the
holding your shape?
Sorry?
Holding your shape in the air and making sure you can contain your balance.
I mean, a strong core. I mean, you need a strong core really for everything. Now that you've said that, I remember the days, the early days in Holland, doing planks with Joe Banks was murder. Oh my days! Now that I'm remembering, was planks and planks days, front planks, side planks was. But a strong core is really important. I mean, it's important for everything. Picking up the kids, you need to have a strong core. But it's really a core, yeah. So I'd really work on that.
And when we're in game and you're obviously down to that decision making about where you are going to block, you talked about reading what's in front of you a lot, despite the obviously information on tactics. Can you give us a wee bit of information about what you are actually reading? Where are your eyes in particular? Are you conscious of what you're doing?
Yeah. So first of all, you have to watch the ball. And then also you have to have this, your peripheral vision has to be on point as well. So you're kind of looking where the setter's, not where he's looking, but where he's, if he's watching you, if he's seeing where you're going, because a lot of setters will see if you've taken a step to follow the middle blocker, or if you've kind of tried to cheat to go back or whatever. So you're kind of looking the flight of the ball. You're also looking to see the outside spikers if they're available to a spike, because I know if the receiver has had to dive to make reception, so you know he's out. So you're looking really at everything. Is the pipe an option? Is the middle blocker on time? These kind of details really help with everything.
And I think obviously when in that situation where everything happens quite fast, you're never going to get it all right. But what happens if you do get it wrong? Obviously, there's an impact on your team, but how do you try and make up for it during the point? Is there anything, if you choose to go away, do you try and catch up, or do you drop off?
In terms of blocking?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, blocking is maybe one of the hardest skills involved, because there is so many variables that can happen. The speed of the ball, the height of the attacker's jump, where he spikes. There's so much, and then obviously the technique of your blocking, trying to get there on time. The only really wrong thing that you can do on blocking is what am I looking for here? It's really try to make something up that's not really there. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, you make your choice and you go with it. If you're going to jump first tempo, you jump first tempo. If you go to the outside, it's not. There's nothing. It's a difficult skill, and if you can't close, I mean, on perfect reception, it's almost impossible, really, to get a good solid 2-man block. I mean, if the reception's on the 3rd meter line, then you're expected really to have a good closed, solid 2 block. If you get it wrong, you get shouted at, and it's the next point. I mean, volleyball, there's always that next point, so you just make up for it in attack, which luckily for me I'm quite good at. So you just have to make up for it in other ways if you do get it wrong.
So obviously you mentioned attack there, so a wee bit of a sideways step into looking at spiking. As a middle blocker, things are obviously a wee bit more predictable when you're receiving serve. But when you're going from that blocking action to then being available in transition, it's pretty tough, and there's obviously a really tight time constraint. But the more you're available, it's got a big impact for your team.
Sure.
When you went up a level and the speed of the game increased, how did you find that step in terms of speed? But also, how did you manage to deal with that?
I mean, I think when you step up a level, things aren't necessarily faster. So the guys that are making defense are technically better. So the ball is a bit higher. It's not as if it's shooting fast into the setter's hands for him to set. Generally, defense is better, so the ball's higher up in the air. So you do have time when you can land and get back. And again, it's practice. It's just something that's drilled into you. Mm-hmm. I can't get this thing out of my head now. Again, in Martinez, one of the drills that we did, I was actually speaking to one of the other British guys about this, Peter Beccari. I don't know if you've met Peter before. He was a middle blocker, absolute monster. Man, his jump was ridiculous. Anyway, we used to do this one drill in Martinez when Joe Banks would feed the ball to the receiver. You had to spike first tempo, but you do that 7 times in a row. So you'd land from your attack, you'd get back, the ball's already been passed from the reception guy, and you spike, and you did this 7 times. And at the time, there was 3 middle blockers. So we did this. I would have my 7, next guy, and then you would do this 7 times. So you do 7 sets of 7 on attack. Honestly, the buckets were beside the court, ready for throwing up. And when you were spent, when you had no more energy left, they changed setters. You had to do it again. So really, from the early days, it was drilled into you, and you just had to be available for attack. And like you said, it's so important to have first tempo available because it opens everything up. It just, the difference between having a 1-man block on the outside and having a 2-man block is night and day, really. And so for the good of your team, it's really important to be available. And I think one thing that helps is having a setter that pushes you to be available, because it's all too easy to land from a block and say, I didn't get it. But then when you see the results of having a 2-man block on the outside and having your teammates in more difficulty, it's just something that's just becomes natural.
So, we've obviously talked a lot about the information from the side of the court beforehand in the lead up to what's happening that you have to be able to process on a match day. But then if we look at it from an attacking perspective, how did you manage to develop the skills to put all that together, your defensive knowledge, your attacking knowledge, and manage to keep that knowing what should happen at the next point and where you need to be? Obviously, you've talked about the increase in the level of data that you've managed to process.
I'm not sure, to be honest. It comes down to practice, and in the early days, you practiced everything. You did a lot of. I remember playing some reception games in reception, so I'd already had that kind of practice before, and I'd done a little bit of as an opposite, as an outside spiker. So I kind of already, I don't know, I liked doing everything. like I know from a young age, players are told, this is what you are, you're tall, you're a middle blocker, you're going to do this. And I think it kind of hurts players a lot as well, being put into this box of, right, you're tall, you're a middle blocker, because you don't practice reception or you don't practice passing free balls or setting. I remember early days actually wanting to go to setting practice just so that you could kind of learn, because like I said, I started at 16 years old or 15 years old and not really having those fundamentals in place, because it was just you practice once a week and then you play the game on the weekend. So there was, I don't know, I just wanted to do everything really. And one thing you'll find is that maybe 3, 4, 5 times in a game, middle blockers are asked to set the ball, or you are asked to pass a free ball, or you are kind of. So it's important that you do know all the elements.
Then, final question before I pass you back to Blair. Is there any targets that you often set yourself before a game that you like to achieve personally?
Personally, I like to be efficient. I don't like to look at the stat sheet after the game and see that you've scored 10 points, but you're only positive for 7 because you've made mistakes in attack or you've made a mistake on service. So that's something that I kind of look at, for me personally, is just the efficiency of my game. Try and have a high percentage in attack. I mean, 75% and above would be perfect. Without mistakes is great. And then for blocks, for me, if I could have 1 block a game or 2 blocks a game is all right. But I know that a lot of middle blockers are looking for that 1 block a set with the higher percentage in attack as well. But in terms of setting personal goals, efficiency is always kind of important for me. And obviously the scoreline.
Thanks very much, Mark. Appreciate it.
Matt, there's a couple of questions that come in there just towards the tail end of your chat. Well, I'm going to just batter through them if that's okay, so they can make sure we've got a chance. Peter come in, carrying on from kind of Darren's question. You might have touched on a little bit, but we'll just jump back onto it if that's all right. It's how do you stop yourself drifting into the outside blocker on a quick set?
How do you stop yourself? You stop yourself by bumping into the outside spiker. And as long as they're strong enough, you're all right. I mean, on a really quick set, you're really not getting there to bang into them. You know, it's yeah. I mean, I'm not joking. You do have to really bump shoulders with the outside blockers. So there's that. They have to be strong to stop you.
Brilliant. I'll pass Andy's on now because I'll get into trouble if I don't. So I'll let you read that one on the screen.
To block in areas across the net. Again, practice. You kind of know. You know the tendencies of the other setter. You work on them all week, and you just practice it. You just practice dealing with a lot of first tempo, a lot of pipe. And also, when you kind of get up the levels, you have a lot of help from your outside spikers as well. It's not like they're only left side or right side. I mean, now in the game, if you're jumping first tempo and a perfect reception, generally you're going to have 2 blockers there as well, because their left side is going to be assisting a lot. So it's not like you're solely left to block by yourself. There is 2 other guys there beside you who do help you with, for example, your opposite or your setter is really in charge of helping with the shoot ball. I don't know what you call it there. The longer set for the first time.
B normally.
What was that?
B normally.
B, okay. So then that's kind of their responsibility, because unless it's been scouted that they play it a lot, then you would follow. Or if they play the B with the passing ball over the top, then the pipe in the B becomes the middle blocker's responsibility, and the opposite is there to help with the B, but also to make sure that they're there for their guy as well. So yeah, practice and really just working on it.
Another one here from Phil. He's asking about what height of setter, or is that a tall or short setter that you prefer to play with?
I don't know, to be honest. I remember playing when I played with Ben Pipes. He's a lot taller than me. You can, because his contact point is higher, you can hit it a lot faster from this rather than a shorter setter then having to set you a higher kind of ball. But now a lot of the shorter setters can jump high, so they do touch the ball high anyway. So, I mean, it doesn't make much of a difference. It's really about the quality of the set and the speed that it comes from the setter's hands. So, in terms of preference, no preference really, just good hands.
Great, a little change of pace for this one. It's one I'm really interested in. It's back from Chris on YouTube again. He says it's really based to you both. How you feel that players leaving Scotland to play pro, is it a benefit or negative to the Scottish game? As a development officer, obviously, I would love to have a full-time professional league here in Scotland and all the guys get a chance to play here for the guys and girls, but that's not available. So interesting to hear both of your opinions probably on that one. It's a great question.
I mean, I think realistically, the only way to develop any further is to leave the UK and to play abroad full time and to really to have a chance of playing at a higher level, because, like you said, in the UK there's no professional league, there's no full time coaches. Training is I don't know what it is now. Once or twice a week you would practice with your club team and then a game on the weekend. Realistically, there's only so far you'll be able to go with that, and I mean the next step is to go professional. I mean, I remember the reason that I left Fife was because I wanted to practice more. I went to Edinburgh. We were doing 3 nights a week, and then I went to an extra session in Glasgow, and then the following year I went to Glasgow again. They practiced 3 nights a week plus this extra session, but Louise, my wife, she played with the women's team and they practiced on a Friday. So I took her to practice, and then I also practiced with the women's team. So essentially I was practicing every night, a game on the weekend, and then occasionally was national team on the weekend. So 20 years ago was definitely plenty of practice for me, but that I had to then find it, you know what I mean? Like I had to research it. So now I don't know what it's like, because it's been so long since I've been out of Scotland. I don't know if that opportunity is there, but for me, for you to make the next step would obviously be to go abroad and to try and play professional. Is it good for the Scottish team?
Yeah, and I think that's an important part. And I was going to say, Ali, how would you feel if your 6 starters or 8 out of your first 12 were all playing throughout Europe throughout the course of the year, and how would that change how you manage the national team?
Probably might feel quite good about it later, but it does create obviously other issues that. But it turns it more into the Central European model, where it's access to players is over small periods of time, but players are playing at a higher level and therefore can do obviously cope with different types of information, make changes a bit quicker, or have to make less changes perhaps. Obviously, I think you both hit the nail on the head. If we go through a cycle and send 10 players off to play professionally in Europe, what does that do to the league in the country? It has to be that continual cycle, and the players that we've got in the country have to be at a high enough level that there's enough there that we can push players into professional leagues. But then it has to be a continual cycle from that point. But that obviously comes down to your job then at that point, Blair.
No pressure. Give me a couple of weeks, please. So moving on again, Kenny Watt, who's done a lot of work, does a lot of work with the men's national team and did a great presentation for us last week before. He's asking about recovery methods, obviously his area of expertise. How have you seen recovery methods change throughout your career, Mark?
I think it's something that's not really pushed onto players. It's certainly not at my level. I mean, maybe at higher levels in other leagues, teams are maybe more focused on the recovery side. But certainly in my time, it's not really been something that's been focused on from a club point of view. Of course, you're told to eat right and get plenty of rest and stuff, but then that's on you. how it's changed for me throughout the career. Now that I'm getting older, you start to really appreciate proper recovery because now it gets harder and harder to recover, especially after games. Now you're talking 2 or 3 days really to feel normal again. But that's an age thing. That's something that I'm really kind of enjoying learning about as I'm kind of getting older, how to deal with that. I've always kind of loved the process of doing prehab and doing rehab and just really working through the process of different things. And now it's something new that I've never had to deal with before because I was never this old before, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of really, it's not exciting because it's maybe more tiring now, but just really learning about your body and how you feel after practice, after games, after a night of drinking, for example, how that affects you 2 or 3 days down the line. It's really, it's something that me personally, I've looked quite a bit into and how I feel after being on the foam roller or being with the physio, or you know what I mean? Like it's something that's important for me, especially now that I'm getting older and things are kind of starting to come to an end, but I'm still trying to grab onto another year. So
you want to prolong as long as you can.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the kind of support mechanisms that's obviously really important that I never really touched upon, and luckily enough I've got a quote here or a comment here from YouTube that reminded me. I'll throw up. You presume you might know who it was. It's commented that there is parental support. Parental support. So you've obviously had that there. Your dad has been very proud of you in your career. But how would you feel about your own kids following that same footstep of yourself? How would you support them to become professional athletes in their chosen career? Is it a pathway you would want them to take or support them to take?
100%. If that's something that they want to do, then 110% me and Louise are behind them fully because Louise, she grew up as a basketball player. She went to the States and did the university in the States on a scholarship. Obviously, I've been abroad playing pro, and also the kids have lived it. They've been from the start. They've been this has been their life. So it's not really. I wouldn't hold them back. That's for sure. And I wouldn't push them to our back. There's always going to be that little gentle shove.
Brilliant. There's another question there from Catherine. I'll just put that up on the screen for you. There's more opportunities for young players.
Do you think there's an opportunity? It's difficult to say because it's been so long. I mean, you'd probably be better to answer that question than me because it's been so long since I've been back in Scotland. I don't know guys who are playing for teams and stuff. I don't know what it's like. What I know is that in Europe is completely different to what it is in Scotland. Like my son's 5 and he's been doing volley for a year. You know what I mean? He practices twice a week. And that's something that I don't know if it happens in Scotland. I don't know if it happens in the UK. And I know that was one thing that really hit home to me and probably to the other guys when we first went to Holland, was that before our practice or after our practice, there was kids who were, 10 years old, who are technically already light years ahead of what I was at 10 years old. I mean, 10 years old, I never even heard of volleyball. And now you've got guys like in our club, there's 10 kids my son's age who practice regular. So I don't know what it's like in Scotland. Maybe you
I mean, I think from an avenue, maybe the question is about opportunities to go and play abroad and play professional. For those that maybe aren't aware, how does that process come about for you? Do you have an agent that approaches clubs? Do clubs approach you directly? How if I'm 17, 18, 19, playing with the national team, thinking I want a bit of that, how do I then get myself in the shop window to playing for a European team?
I mean, I don't want to say it was easy for me, but obviously because we went to Holland as a British team, so we were already kind of in that shop window, and luckily for me, the agent who was with one of the girls who played on the women's team of our club team in Holland, and I'd spoken to him and said, "Would you like to work with me?" He said yes, and then it kind of progressed from there. Now I mean, there are plenty of agents out there. There's plenty of. I mean, if you search volleyball agent online, there'll be someone, and that would probably be my first kind of point of call, is to try and get yourself an agent. Get yourself some game tape as well, like a full game tape, and then try and get some highlights. I mean, I've had guys speak to me before and tried to help, but really it's tough for me as a player to say, "I come on over." You know what I mean, like it's not as simple as that. The best thing to be is for you to try and speak to an agent. I mean, if someone was to get in touch with me, I'd always give them my agent's details at the time. But yeah, that would be the first thing. Would be try and get an agent. I mean, if you wanted to send me a message or something, I could kind of help with that. But I think it would be quite not difficult, but I mean, just send out as many emails as you can to clubs and stuff. And then also to the other point there about clubs reaching out to individual players. A lot of teams do that. A lot of teams will obviously see you. Now it's easier with the internet that there's games available for all coaches. There's a program in place where you can watch all games you want. You can type in the player that you want to search, and then all the games will come up. So a lot of coaches will then go directly to the player.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions here about Bulgaria in particular. There's one up there, I'm assuming, from maybe one of your fans over there. You're just asking if you're enjoying your time in Bulgaria.
Bulgaria's fantastic. Really, we've been on holiday here before, because the guy that I played with and Leon became really good with. They invited us over on holiday. We came over maybe 5 or 6 years ago now. I really enjoyed it. But then when he got in contact saying that they're looking for an experienced middle blocker, let's say, not an old one, the thought was to move here full time. We were kind of a little bit reluctant, but then as soon as we came over here, we just loved it. Honestly, from the first moment, the people are amazing. Luckily for me, the club that I'm involved with is really professional, and it's just, yeah, it's great.
Brilliant. And for those that don't know, what kind of level is volleyball out there? Are you getting quite a lot of fans into your games? Are the televised matches? It's, you know, how big's the sport where you are?
It's big enough that there's games on television every week. In terms of supporters, some places are more than others. I know ours isn't particularly. We don't have a particularly big fan base here in Sofia. I know the other team in Sofia have got quite a loud, but I think they also come from the football side of things. So it's more of a sporting club. They just like to come and hurl abuse to the Levski players. But
and somebody said, Stephen Foreman's asked here if you've met big Stan Petrov. Must be the only Bulgarian that he maybe knows. He's asking if Stan, he's given advice to handle the media.
I have. What is that about media?
He's just asking if Stan's giving you advice to handle the media.
Honestly, I avoid media at all costs. There's interviews. You'll not find many interviews with me. And honestly, anybody that knows me knows that what I'm doing right now isn't really my thing. I hate public speaking. I hate him. It's not for me. Meeting Stan, never met him. Does follow me on Twitter though. So that. And I do have one of his signed jerseys because a guy that I played with is friends with him, and he got me one of his jerseys signed. So
nice. Brilliant. Well, listen, you've for somebody that doesn't like doing interviews and stuff like that, you've been absolutely brilliant with us tonight. So I know our kind of time's coming towards an end. Do you think the future holds a return to Scotland at some point, or are you quite happy just being out there in Europe and put your feet down or put your roots down wherever you find yourself?
I mean, never say never, but at the moment we're really happy here in Bulgaria, and we can't see anything past it just now. So for the moment we're here, and yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the answer that my parents want to hear, but I mean, not that they're interested. They're only interested in the kids.
There's the boss jumped on, just saying thanks a lot for you tonight, just echoing what we'd said, and the fact you're a great ambassador for Scottish volleyball. So yeah, I echo her sentiments, and there's been some great questions and some really good engagement across all the platforms.
better ambassador if I had one of those SVA t-shirts over here. Yeah.
We'll see what we can do, Mark. We'll see. The payoff will be if we send a t-shirt out, you need to do another Facebook Live with us to chat about it.
Well, we'll see about that.
Brilliant. Ali, have you got anything you want to kind of finish up with, Mark? Have I missed anything off that we thought we were going to chat about?
No, I think we've grilled him enough. Thanks very much, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me. Although I was a bit disappointed that you put me after the beach #1. You could have put her next.
Yeah, we had that same discussion. See, when it became public knowledge that we were putting Karch on, nobody wanted to follow Karch. There's folk diving out of windows and things when we suggested they were going on after him. So have you managed to catch much of the SV online stuff?
Sorry?
Have you managed to catch much of the stuff we've done online between training sessions and commitments?
I really enjoyed it. Joe Banks, fantastic. Love Joe Banks, a great guy and what a coach as well. He was really important for us in the early days and with the national team. Love listening to it. I could let Joe speak all day, and I love listening to people who are just enthusiastic about volleyball and what they do. It's great. Who else? The nutritionist, I forget what her name is.
Sally,
yeah. Another one was great. Also, Kieran.
Kevin Chara.
I mean, the whole series has been great. Just have you got stuff planned for next month, or what's
this is the pinnacle, Mark. We can't beat it. We've had you on now. That's us. We've reached the top of the mountain. No, it's something that we're really keen to keep going, and it's obviously it's kind of been born out of COVID, and it's not something we would normally have done in normal circumstances. But to be honest with you, I think all the staff have been really pleased with engagement right across the board. So I think it's something we'll look to continue to do, even when we do get back to some kind of normality, whenever that normal or what that normal new looks like. That we'll continue to try and engage with this wider community, because it's been a great point for us.
I mean, I think like you say, it's been. I mean, the information that coaches and specialists have been putting out there that's available for everybody to come and watch live and to ask direct questions. I mean, it's not easy to have people to come to a hall or an office or something like this. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, great. Glad you've enjoyed it. I'm honestly delighted you've been part of it as well. So thanks again for your time. I'll let you go. I'm sure there'll be plenty of comments coming back through and folk watching it on repeat or watching it in replay. We'll to catch up with the comments and the questions at a later date. But again, thanks for your time, Mark. All the best for the season ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Keep up the good work, I guess.
Cheers. Thank you.
See you later, Mark.
Ali, thanks a million for your time tonight. You've been a more than able host. I think Andy might struggle to get his golden microphone back out when he comes back from annual leave. So thanks again for your time. I know probably I would touch upon, because I'm sure there's some of your team watching tonight, but we're not really that further forward with regards to getting back to national team practice. But we are, as you know, we're working on a lot of different juggling plates just now to try and get back to the stage we are. Have you got any kind of update with regards to the national team moving forward?
Not particularly. Obviously, we're just sitting waiting on when we can get back together. But we've been planning and working hard behind the scenes. We've had a few get-togethers with the boys online, and hopefully they're doing as much as they can off the court to make sure that there's no injuries. Obviously, Kenny Watt's been on tonight listening. He's been through a presentation with the boys to make sure to try and make sure everybody's ready, and we've got as few injuries as possible when we do hit the court. So hopefully that's in place.
Excellent. We'll look forward to that. There's lots of important things happening with association moving forward, and I know you've got a little bit of a view on that, and you're aware of it. So hopefully it's an exciting time for everybody involved in the sport moving forward. But Ali, thanks again for your time tonight. Take care, and we'll catch you soon. Folks, that's it for another SV Online. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Been great content. Thanks for all the questions. Take care, and we'll catch you soon.